Masked men drag a mother out of her car, her hands zip-tied behind her back. Children watch from the window as the world turns black. No phone call, no lawyer, just an unmarked van. Tell me, when did we become this kind of land? She has a job, pays her taxes, and shows up to court. But quotas matter more than justice, more than any human thought. And the kids are learning something as they watch her fade away. They're learning how to hate, they're learning how to fear. We all bleed red. We all bleed red. It doesn't matter what they've called us or what they've said. We all experience pain, love and dread. Wake up before it's too late. We all bleed red. Salem taught us history screamed that fear can turn a neighbor into something obscene. Witch, vermin, illegal, just words at first, until the label justifies the words. They're transporting them at night across states in chains. Who's keeping tabs? Who's watching? Who remembers names? And your children are taking notes on what we're normalizing today. Tomorrow when it's you, what will they say? We all bleed red. It doesn't matter what they've called us or what they said. We all experience pain, love and dread. Wake up before it's too late. We all bleed red. First they came for the stranger, then for the other one. Then they came for the outspoken one. Then for everyone, there'll be nowhere left to hide, no one left to care. You watch them all disappear. Now no one's there. Hear the mother pleading, sounds just like you. Watch the father vanish, looks just like yours. Feel the child's terror, that could be yours. This isn't happening on some distant shore. We're teaching them that some lives don't count, that some screams for help you can tune out. We're teaching them to sort the worthy from the rest, to draw the blinds and just forget today you're safe because you're not the one they take. Tomorrow when it's you, we'll stay awake when the vans roll through and no one dares to ask. Your children will remember you never dared to ask. We all bleed red. It doesn't matter what they've called us or what they've said. We all experience pain, love and dread. Open your heart and realize we all bleed red. We are all alike in the ways that matter most. Don't wait until you become the disappear, the ghost. We all bleed red. We all bleed red. History is observing what we do instead. Your children will ask you what you did when people were vanishing and humanity was slipping away. Will you say that you looked away? Or will you say you heard their cries that day? We all bleed red. We all bleed red. We all bleed red.
Live on the air, it's Trial Junkies United with your host, Z.
Thank you, Doc. This is Trial Junkies United. I'm Z, your storyteller, and tonight we're going to talk about what happens when we forget that we all bleed red. Welcome to the Trial Junkies, Truth Seekers, Justice Warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller, with my ride or die Doc, riding shotgun as always. And tonight, this podcast is for everyone who believes that justice matters, that facts matter, and every human life has dignity. Isn't that right, Doc?
Well, if it doesn't now, it certainly will later.
Exactly. But what would you do if someone whispered in your ear that there was a witch among your friends? Would you trust them? Or would fear take over? Something for us to think about tonight as we get started. This isn't going to be a boring civics lesson, you guys. This is about real people, real families, real consequences. And we often believe rights belong to just specific individuals, but constitutional protections actually belong to everybody. And the constitutional protections don't work that way. They safeguard principles. Thank you, Irish Amy.
Hey, doesn't she look awesome in green?
And when we make exceptions for one group, we weaken the foundation for all. But before we even get to the law and the precedent, there's something more fundamental we're going to discuss. What happens when we stop seeing each other as human? Because here's the thing. Throughout history, whenever societies have committed atrocities, it always starts the same way, with fear, with dehumanization. It makes one group of people seem less human than the rest of us. And once that happens, well, we're going to see what happens when we do that to others. Because once that happens, removing their rights feels justified, necessary. Even today, we're starting with a story, and this is about a classroom, a teacher, and a game that taught students more about justice than any textbook ever could. So, whoops.
Hold on. There we go. You're back.
I'm back. Yay. A witch among us. This was from a parent. Her daughter came home from school not long ago and said, "Mom, you're not going to believe what happened in history class today." Her teacher told the class they were going to play a game. He walked around the room and whispered to each kid whether they were a witch or just a regular person. Then he gave these instructions. Form the largest group you can without including a witch. Even if one is in your group, you all fail. She said, and the whole room instantly lit up with suspicion. Everyone began questioning each other. Are you a witch? How can we be sure you're telling the truth? Some kids stuck with one big group, but most of them broke into smaller, exclusive cliques. They rejected anyone who seemed unsure, nervous, or gave even the tiniest sign of guilt. The atmosphere changed quickly. Suddenly, everyone became suspicious of each other. There were whispers and finger pointing, side eye. Trust vanished in minutes. There were friends, kids who sat together at lunch, texted each other, and had known each other for years. And within minutes, that trust disappeared. Finally, when all the groups had been formed, the teacher said, "All right, it's time to find out who fails. All the witches, raise your hands." Not a single hand went up. The entire class erupted. "Wait, you messed up the game." And then the teacher dropped the bomb. Did I? Were there any real witches in Salem? Or did everyone just believe what they were told? My daughter said the room went completely silent. And that's when it hit them. No witch was ever necessary for damage to occur. Fear had already done its job. Suspicion alone divided an entire class, causing chaos throughout the community. And isn't that exactly what we're witnessing today? Different words, same script. Instead of witch, it's liberal, conservative, vaxxed, unvaxxed, pro this, anti that, race, brown, black, or white. The labels change, but the strategy is the same. Make people fearful, make them suspicious, make them divided, then relax as trust falls apart. The danger was never the witch. The real threat is the rumor, the suspicion, the fear, the planted lies. Ignore the whispers. Don't get involved in the game, because the moment we begin hunting witches, we've already lost. That classroom became Salem without a single real witch. Fear split them apart. Friends turned against friends. Sound familiar? Before we explore why this is important today, let's discuss what actually happened in Salem. In Salem in 1692, Salem, Massachusetts, there weren't strangers accusing other strangers. These were neighbors, people who had lived side by side, attended church together, shared meals, people who knew each other's families, histories, and struggles. But fear transformed how they saw each other. Once someone was accused of witchcraft, they stopped being Sarah, John, or Rebecca. They became witch. They became the other. They became something less than human, something evil that needed to be destroyed. And once you stop viewing someone as fully human, it becomes easy to deny them basic protections. And here's how it worked. Accusations flew. People were convicted based on dreams and visions, what they called spectral evidence. If someone dreamed that your spirit attacked them, that was enough evidence against you. If you were accused, it meant you were essentially guilty. You didn't have an honest lawyer and couldn't defend yourself properly. And here's the reality, the twisted part. Denying the charge was seen as proof of guilt, because a witch would lie, wouldn't they? Under pressure and torture, people confessed to crimes they never committed and accused others to save themselves. And this led to more accusations, more trials, and more executions. The spiral continued to grow. By the end, 200 people had been accused. 30 were convicted, 19 were executed. 19 people died because of fear, lies, and a system that abandoned due process. And that's what happens when fear replaces justice. This is what happens when we forget that we all bleed red. Now, you might be thinking, Z, that was over 300 years ago. We're more civilized. We have laws. We have rights. And you're correct. We do have laws and rights, right, Doc?
Well, you okay, yeah.
But you'd want to know why? Because nearly a century after Salem, when the framers drafted our Constitution, Salem haunted their minds. They understood what unchecked government power could do. They witnessed what occurs when emotion and fear override reason and proper procedure. They saw what happens when dehumanization leads to injustice. So they incorporated protections into our founding documents. The Constitution isn't just about how government works. It's about how government, we can limit their power, because the framers were very specific about this. And let me tell you about 3 protections they put in place. Protections designed to prevent Salem from ever happening again. First, the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Notice the word they used, person. Ooh, Julie's related to John Proctor. Interesting. But they used the word person. They didn't say citizen. They didn't say property owner. Not a member of the right religion, not a member of the right religion here, or a denomination, or born in the right place. They said person. This means that due process, the right to a fair hearing, to know what you're accused of, and to defend yourself, belongs to everyone. You can't take it away simply because someone is other, different, or foreign. The Fifth Amendment also protects it against self-incrimination. No more torture. No more forcing confessions. You have the right to remain silent because the government has to prove its case. You don't have to help them destroy yourself. Now, second, there was the Sixth Amendment. This is where they became very specific about Salem's failures. The right to counsel means you get a lawyer who truly defends you. The right to confront your accusers. No more spectral evidence. No more anonymous accusations. Your accuser must face you in court. You have the right to call witnesses in your defense, and that means you can present your side of the story. These were straightforward responses to the Salem nightmare. And third, this one is so important that it's in the original Constitution itself, even before they added the Bill of Rights. And that is habeas corpus. In simple terms, habeas corpus means this: if the government puts you in jail, you have to show a judge why. They must produce you in court. They need to justify your detention with evidence and law. If they can't, you go free. Now, without habeas corpus, the government could arrest you today, and you just vanish. No charges, no trial, no explanation to your family. You'd simply be poof, gone. That's why the founders called habeas corpus the emergency brake on government power. It's the one thing standing between detention and disappearance. These protections exist because the framers of the Constitution understood a fundamental truth. Legal rights flow from human dignity. You can't safeguard one without affirming the other. Okay? Here's what I want you to know. understand, due process isn't really about protecting the accused. It is actually about limiting government's power. It's about confirming that human dignity cannot be taken away by fear. It states, even when you're sure, even when you're scared, even when it seems oblivious or obvious, even when everybody agrees, you still need to prove it. You still need to follow the rules. You still need to treat people like people. The moment we accept that government can imprison, punish, or remove people without these protections, regardless of who they are, we've accepted a principle that can't be contained. We've brought the ghost of Salem back into our courts. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We keep forgetting these lessons. We keep repeating the same mistakes. And I'm going to show you a pattern and how it repeats. Salem wasn't the only time we've seen the pattern, not even close. Let me tell you about the Trail of Tears and pay attention to the pattern. The year was 1838. The Indian Removal Act was enacted. President Andrew Jackson determined that the native peoples must be relocated from their ancestral lands to accommodate the white settlers. But here's how they justified it. They called the native people savages, uncivilized, obstacles to progress. They believed they weren't truly human, you see. They considered them as others. Does that sound familiar to you? The Cherokee, the Muskie, and the Seminole, the Chickasaw, and the Choctaw nations, over 100,000 people, were rounded up, held in stockades and detention camps, and then forced to march thousands of miles. They said at least 15,000 people died, with some estimates being much higher due to exposure, disease, starvation during forced marches. But it didn't end there. California paid bounties for native scalps and bodies. That's genocide by any definition. Ooh, I need to change my earpiece here because I've got a low battery.
Oops.
And we can't have that. So let me get this in.
Well, that was
out.
even worse than that was just plain out and out murder. I mean, it's just trying to get scalps.
Can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello?
Hello?
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
Let me see. Hello?
Your sound input.
Okay.
Let me.
Okay. Doc has to drive, guys.
Control panel. Boom, 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 boom.
Sound.
Where is it? Oh, up here. Headphone. Well, that's right. Oh, but you heard. You're disconnected. That is right now.
I can hear it.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah. Hold on.
Here, take these with you.
Well,
just in case they're.
I don't need them right now.
I don't know if they keep popping on.
Okay.
Okay, can anybody We can hear you both, see. Okay.
Hear you?
That's what Amy said. She can hear me. Yay.
Can everybody hear you?
Can you hear me, Doc?
I can.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Okay. Yeah, well,
now I can hear you.
Huh?
Yep, we can hear you
Okay.
both.
All right.
Okay. Sorry, guys. So next, the boarding schools, which I call them prison schools. And we've talked about them. And that's where they established the let's kill the Indian and save the man, a form of cultural genocide through forced assimilation. That was before the Borg. Abuse and family separation. These practices continued into the 1970s. The 1970s, you guys. They also did forced sterilization programs targeting Native women, continuing into the 70s. The reservation system basically was an open-air prison. Massacres, Sand Creek, Wounded Knee, and many more. The pattern is exactly what we observed in Salem. Dehumanization first, then the legal frameworks. The Indian Removal Act, the Dawes Act. It made these atrocities legal. Then using emergency rhetoric, manifest destiny, the civilizing mission, they can't coexist with progress. Now, they had the priests with the kids, as we can see, institutionalized complicity. The churches operated boarding schools and the courts supported them. And the military carried it out. Then the detention and the tracking, they rounded up, held them in camps, and forced the march. They started, and they started with the relocation. And this wasn't concealed. It occurred openly with legal permission. People knew. Most decided to ignore it or to justify it. And some of these other topics we'll go into on a Thursday night when we're talking about our Native brothers and sisters and what they went through. But this just follows the pattern. So next, who do we have? Now, this is one that people don't like to talk about right now. And let me just give you another example. Hitler. But the pattern is too important to ignore, you guys. Germany, 1930. How did he manage to get an entire nation to support the genocide of people? He didn't begin with the gas chambers. He began with words. Vermin, parasites, inferior, evil. He began by dehumanizing one group. Then he introduced laws that stripped them of their rights by deportations. They rounded it up, deported him, and finally the camps, while they stole everything that the people owned. And the German people, most of them, they weren't monsters. They were ordinary people, but they bought into the story that another group of people were dangerous and inferior. And that was the cause of all the problems.
They ended up believing the lie
against neighbor.
So
they built systems where citizens could report on each other and were rewarded for doing so. Does that sound familiar? Because I know here in Texas, they have that law. You can turn your neighbors in for certain things that they've started. Yeah. Many Protestants and Catholic churches either actively supported the regime or remained silent. Some clergy even joined the German Christian movement that combined Nazi ideology with Christianity. Some resisted, such as Dietrich Bonhoeffer and the Confessing Church, and they paid with their lives. But most just looked away. By the time the wider population recognized the danger, the methods of persecution had become deeply rooted, and opposition became very risky. Now, here's another example from American history. Likely, maybe your grandparents might remember this. 1942, World War II, Pearl Harbor had just been attacked. America is scared. Camps. So what do? We rounded up 120,000 Japanese Americans. Most of them were U.S. citizens, and put them in internment camps. No charges, no trials, just fear. They called them enemy aliens, not neighbors, not fellow citizens. Families were given days to report. They lost their homes, their businesses, and their belongings. They lost everything. And here's what's important. At that time, most Americans supported it. It seemed necessary, reasonable. It was an emergency after all. Now we look back with horror. The U.S. government officially apologized in 1988. We called it what it was, a massive violation of constitutional rights. But that recognition came decades later. Too late for those who died, too late for those who lost everything in the camps. Are you starting to see the pattern? Once society accepts that it's okay to deny due process to those people, we can suspend normal rights for that group. We can use emergency powers against them. We can dehumanize that category of person, and the infrastructure and the precedent exist to expand it. The next group becomes easier. And the rationalizations are already practiced. Today, it's just one group. Tomorrow, when the political winds shift, when new fear emerges, when you say the wrong thing, you know the wrong person, or you simply happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, it could be you they've stopped seeing as fully human. And that brings us to today, to what's happening right now. Right here in America in 2025. This is where it gets real, folks. This is where we need to pay attention. We have ICE. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't think criminals should be allowed into a country to commit crimes. So we're not talking about criminals. But what's happening now, I'm going to be very specific here because this isn't theory. These are real people. These are real families. So let's start with tracking the problem. Currently, in Alligator Alcatraz, there are hundreds of detainees at Florida's state-run, they call it an immigration center. We can call it an internment camp because basically that's what it is. They have lost count of hundreds of detainees. They're not listed in a federal online detainee locator system, and this prevents families and lawyers from locating them. By the end of August 2025, about 800 of over 1,800 detainees at a facility called Alligator Alcatraz were not listed in any system. An additional 450 have no recorded location. The facility has been dubbed a black hole due to the irregular disappearance of detainees. So when individuals vanish from tracking systems, when families are unable to locate their loved ones, that's when the most severe abuses can occur. And let me explain why this is important. Hey, OnlyFan, you can't file a habeas corpus petition if you don't know where someone's being held. Remember, habeas corpus is show me the body, explain why you're holding this person. But if you don't know where they are, you can't challenge that detention or the deportation. The entire constitutional protection collapses. Lawyers can't connect with their families, can't visit loved ones. Journalists can't conduct investigations. Courts can't enforce legal rights. Advocates can't witness events firsthand. When you don't know where someone is, they can't receive visits. They don't get mail or packages. They can't get emotional support. They're completely vulnerable. Isolation is a type of psychological torture. It also increases compliance because when you're alone, you're scared and unsure if anyone even knows where you're at. You're less likely to stand up for your rights or to resist. And here's what should scare you. It's deliberate. This isn't an administrative mistake. A system is built to make people untraceable. That's a feature. It's not a bug. And think about that. Families get taken and they transfer them clear across the country. Well, you don't hide people unless you have something to hide. What about third country deportations? The administration is deporting people to countries they're not from, places where they don't speak the language. They have no family. They don't have any connections. Sometimes they have as little as 6 hours notice without assurances they won't face persecution or torture. And Doc, you remember what you told the story of visiting Mexico when you didn't speak the language. That was scary when you got lost, wasn't it?
Well, that was terrifying. It was not a good thing at all.
And at least you were still connected to the United States because Mexico, we share a border. Can you imagine as some of these people are being shipped to Sudan? You heard me right. Sudan, where they are actually warning Americans don't travel there. They're sending them to Vietnam, to Cuba, Burma, Laos. Some get sent to Mexico, some Rwanda, and there was in Ghana. Can you imagine going that far away from your home? You have no money. You have no way of contacting your family. You don't know what you're going into. South Sudan is one of the world's poorest and most political unstable countries. And they are sending these people there. That could be a death sentence. They've never been there. They don't know the country. They don't know the language. Over 200 Venezuelan migrants were transferred to El Salvador when they went to CCOT, and 75% of them had no criminal record. 75%, you guys. Some were told they were going to one country and then were sent to a completely different one with no warning. And let that sink in. You're put on a plane, you're chained up, you don't know where you're going. Hours into the flight, they tell you that you're being sent to a country you've never been to, maybe you've never even heard of. You don't have a passport, you don't have your money, you have nothing. How can that be considered humane? How can that be justified as justice? But let's talk about the real people, because these aren't just statistics, you guys. Ruben Torres Maldonado. Oh, I think I hit a button wrong again. There we go. When ICE agents detained Reuben on October 18th, they didn't just take a man, they shattered his family. His 16-year-old daughter was fighting for survival. Ophelia is battling a cancer. It's rare, it's aggressive, and she had just been released from the hospital, and her father was arrested at the suburban Home Depot where he worked as a painter and a renovator. Even a federal judge has ruled that Torres's detention violates due process. He's ordered a bond hearing. However, he's still in custody. The Department of Homeland Security describes his case as a desperate Hail Mary attempt to keep a criminal, illegal alien in the country. And what's his crime? Minor traffic violations. But Ophelia, she sees her father as a man who, in her words, wakes up early every morning to go to work without complaining. While her father sits in detention, she's fighting cancer by herself. This is, and I'm going to get her name wrong, and I'm sorry, Harjit Kaur, Kaur, from Hercules, California. She was 73 years old. She lived in the United States for more than 30 years because she fled political violence in Punjab in 1991. Now, she has spent decades as a seamstress in the Bay Area. She's paid her taxes. She's raised 2 sons. Now, she has applied for asylum, and the immigration judge had ordered her to be deported in 2005. But she kept living quietly, paying her taxes, and reporting to ICE every 6 months as required. So she was still following the rules. For decades, she followed these rules. And suddenly, a routine check-in, when she went to court on September 8th, she was arrested. She was taken from California to Georgia and deported to India on September 22nd. Her attorney stated she spent almost 3 days on the floor without a bed, was denied adequate food despite having double knee replacements. Upon landing in Delhi, she told reporters, after living in the U.S. for so long and being suddenly detained and deported like this, it's better to die than to face it. That's a 73-year-old woman. It's better to die than to face this. That's someone's grandma, someone's mama, who followed the rules for 30 years. Now, this is, I don't even know how, Subba Vidayam. His first name is Subramanyam. They call him Suba, I think. He's in Pennsylvania. Well, what happened to him? He was in prison for 42 years for a murder he didn't commit. In Pennsylvania, he was the longest serving exonerated prisoner when his conviction was overturned in September of 2025. Did he even get a day of celebration? The Pennsylvania Innocence Program had uncovered that the FBI concealed evidence proving his innocence, that the fatal bullet could not have come from the weapon the prosecutors were using to convict him in 1983. He sat in prison for 43 years on false evidence. But on the day he left prison, ICE agents were waiting. They detained him under a legacy deportation order from the 1980s, citing his now vacated murder charge and a nonviolent drug offense when he was 19. ICE has labeled him a career criminal, citing controlled substance trafficker. He was a 19-year-old kid that had some drugs on him. He came to the U.S. when he was 9 months old. He spent his entire life here. While in prison, he got a master's degree in He also helped hundreds of inmates earn their diplomas. His family are all U.S. citizens. And he has nobody in India. And what do they want to do after he spent 42 years in prison for a crime he's never committed? They want to deport him. And now his niece says deportation would extend the harm of his wrongful incarceration. It would expand the impact of what has happened to him. So from Ghana to Georgia, from prison cells to hospital rooms, the same theme is echoing, you guys. Bureaucracy over mercy. Policy over people. Enforcement over empathy. Now, let me explain the documented abuses. Despite the system's efforts to conceal them, Senator John Ossoff, in his investigation, has documented 510 credible reports of human rights abuses in immigration detention centers since January 2025. These include physical and sexual abuse, mistreatment of pregnant women, and mistreatment of children. Human Rights Watch documented people subjected to dangerously inadequate medical care, overcrowding, abusive treatment, officers denied critical medication. They detained people incommunicado, in solitary confinement, so they can't get help. They confine them as punishment for seeking mental health treatment. People have been forced to sleep on cold concrete floors without bedding. And in one case, a woman miscarried. She wasn't even provided follow-up medical care for 11 days. She reported ongoing pain and bleeding. These are the people who say they care about children and want to see more babies being born, and they left this woman in there for 11 days getting no medical care after she miscarried, after bad treatment. Now, the kicker is the CBP has just asked for permission to destroy medical case files of people in custody after 20 years. So the very records that would show evidence of medical neglect and abuse, they want to destroy the evidence. If you're not seeing a pattern, hey, explain it to me. Because dehumanizing conditions, officials literally promoted the alligator Alcatraz by saying, if people get out, the alligators are going to get them. And they talked about it with joy, and they thought it was fabulous. They told them there's not much waiting for them other than the alligators and the pythons. And they said the alligators might be a deterrent. That's what they were saying about human beings. Now, Amnesty International described it as a human rights disaster because unsanitary conditions, insufficient medical care, and limited access to lawyers. DeSantis invoked a 2023 immigration state of emergency to bypass the normal environmental reviews for this, putting this thing together. Bypassing due process, the Supreme Court permitted the administration to reduce its protections. So institutional acquisition, can't say it. Though a federal judge eventually ordered the facility shut down for environmental violations, most of the institutions initially enabled it. And I think they started back up again. So this is the same pattern we saw with the Native American genocide, the Nazi Germany, the Japanese internment. The playbook doesn't change, you guys. It's just the targets that are changing. And I hope you heard the song before we started, and I hope it struck you because it is happening right now. Today, what you need to understand, it doesn't stop. You might be thinking, but Z, I'm a citizen. I have a birth certificate. It doesn't affect me. But here's why that's incorrect. Because it's already expanding to citizens, you guys, because they might look like immigrants. This is one of the gentlemen that ran a car wash. He was 79 years old. Rafi Ola I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he went out after ICE raided his car wash. He's a U.S. citizen. And they took this 79-year-old man to the ground. He suffered multiple broken ribs, elbow injuries, and a traumatic brain injury during the September 9th incident, according to the federal tort claimed by his attorneys. He ended up, after they held him for a while, he ended up in the hospital. This is Lori Ekman. She's 84. Her and her husband, Richard, who's also 84, was a Vietnam War veteran. They went to a protest in Oregon. They were rushed by federal officers for no apparent reason. Her husband was on a walker. She said her husband was leaning on his walker, wearing his Vietnam veteran's cap as they were pushed to the ground. It was totally unprovoked. It's not the kind of crowd that shouts the F word, she said. It was people like us, our neighbors. There were families. There were several veterans. Lori Ekman told the Oregon Live, with no warning, the feds charged into us, knocked us down, and sprayed us. I was hit in the head with a projectile. That's her husband on his walker, and she's standing next to him. They look wild, don't they? For the next 3 days, there was also George Rat. Oh, I know I'm messing up his name, but he was the Vietnam vet we've talked about before that was a U.S. citizen. He was a veteran, and they held him for 3 days, and he's also suing now because of the treatment. They are literally going up to women in Chicago in parking lots at Walmart, asking them. Masked men are going up to women. Think about that. I would be nervous if some masked guys come up to me with guns and they're asking them, where were you born? Now, that's not, they said they were going after dangerous criminals, right? No, they're actually going after people and asking them, where were you born? What hospital? Prove your citizenship. They're even doing it to the Native and Indigenous brothers and sisters, telling them, we don't recognize you as, citizens. So the meaning of suspicious continues to expand. It's just not the immigrants. They're also going after the homeless. And the playbook is being used right now. The Supreme Court granted a decision in 2024. And then the administration has now, this year, he signed laws trying to get them to do sweeps. They want the homeless off the streets. Well, where are they going to go? They're confiscating people's belongings, what meager belongings the homeless have. And this includes their important documents, survival gear, medication, IDs, their wheelchairs, irreplaceable personal items, like maybe the only pictures they have left of their family. They destroy them right in front of them. No mercy, no care. This gentleman here is named Cornelius Taylor. And in Atlanta in 2025, he was inside his tent when the public works bulldozed his encampment, and they killed him. They tried to say he had a drug overdose, but that's not what happened. The autopsy was released 10 weeks later and revealed he died from blunt force trauma, including a lacerated spleen and liver and a pelvis fractured in half from the equipment they used to bulldoze his tent. He was pronounced dead at the scene before the ambulance arrived. Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and city officials have declined to comment. Same playbook, you guys. And they're doing it with the immigrants. Not tracked in a locator system, moving without notice, held in remote locations. Families can't find them. The one veteran that we talked about, he said he missed his daughter's 3rd birthday. His family didn't know where he even was. They have no lawyers. The homeless people are being swept from public view, belongings destroyed, ID and documents taken, pushed from places to place, arrested and jailed. Some in the homeless community in Austin and Houston are saying that some of the other homeless are disappearing. Well, where are they going? No record of where they're at. And these are people, homeless people, depend on each other. They let each other know when they get a group that looks out for each other. So dehumanized rhetoric, they don't belong here. Emergency justifications, private companies profiting, limited documentation, death and abuses hidden. And in fact, over 20 people have died in these containment prisons that they're putting immigrants in, 20 this year already. And here's why this should concern everyone, because once you create the infrastructure to make one group disappear, it remains for the next group. The deportation system, that sweeping machinery, it's unmonitored detention, you guys. The emergency authorities, who's next? Political dissidents, people who criticize the government. Ooh, the mentally ill. It's already happening. The forced treatment policies, drug users, protesters, people who practice the wrong religion. Maybe you don't go to the right church. Maybe you have a criminal record, you're a felon, and maybe you'll reoffend. Maybe we need to take you too. Anyone considered other. The tools have been built. The precedent has been set. The public is being conditioned to accept that some people can simply disappear. And there's a lot of money in it. ICE plans to spend up to $45 billion over 2 years on immigration detention. While people are going hungry, they're getting rid of food stamps, they're getting rid of SNAP, they're getting rid of things for children. They're not getting fed at school. The elderly, Meals on Wheels, a lot of them are closing down, and they're going to spend $45 billion over 2 years on immigration detentions. They're also buying weapons such as hand-to-air missiles. Now, why would ICE here in the U.S. need those kind of weapons? Think about it. The CEO of the private prison company CoreCivic, which is putting up a lot of these places that are holding the immigrants, he said, it's one of the most exciting periods of my career, with perhaps the most significant growth in our company's history. Think about that. The CEO of a private prison company is excited about unprecedented growth in detention. There's money being made as people disappear. Private prisons profit from detention, contracts for sweeps and cleanups. Security companies, real estate interests are pushing homeless people out to raise property values. How many people are going to lose their home? Where are they going to go? Because if they're going to go to the streets, there's no place there because they're picking them up. When enforcement is driven by profit, human beings turn into commodities. And I want you to remember the legal precedents being established, they don't stay confined. When the courts accept that the government can detain people without meaningful judicial review in an immigration case, the reasoning spreads. It's cited in national security cases, criminal proceedings, and regulatory enforcement. The Korematsu decision authorized the internment of the Japanese Americans, and that precedent was referenced in other cases for decades. Surveillance programs justified for terrorism, now they're used in routine criminal investigations. Our asset forfeitures procedures developed for drug cases used broadly across various enforcement types. The exceptions turn into the rule. The others grow to include more and more of us. And this is why the framers made due process a non-negotiable thing. They understood that it's precisely when we're most afraid of witchcraft, of terrorism, of crime, of the other, that we're tempted to abandon these protections. And it's precisely when we're most afraid that we mostly need these. So let's bring this together, because this isn't just about history. It's about immigration. It's about homelessness. It's about all of us. Due process is inseparable. We either safeguard ourselves or we safeguard no one. Human dignity is indivisible. We must recognize it in everyone, or we risk losing it for all. And let me explain what this looks like in real life. Every person currently being detained eats when they're hungry. They feel pain when they're hurt. They love their children. They fear for their safety. They bleed red. The mother who is separated from her children experiences that separation the same way you would. The man detained without being told why feels the fear just like you would. The child watching their parent being taken away experiences that trauma the same way your child would. We all share the same core ways. And this isn't just about morality, though. That alone should be enough. It's about self-preservation. Now, I'm not saying that people that are dangerous and have criminal histories should not be arrested and taken. Yes, they should. But we're talking about people that don't have criminal histories. And what we're allowing to be normalized right now, disappearances, secret detentions with no accountability, denial of legal rights, abuse without accountability. These issues don't remain limited to just one group, you guys. And the legal precedents, they'll be referenced in other cases. The institutional changes, they will be applied to other contexts. The public's acceptance of these tactics, it extends to other threats. The machinery of oppression, once it's established, doesn't remain inactive. It seeks out new targets. The test of just society isn't how it treats those in power, those it loves, or those who resemble the majority. The measure of a just society is how it treats those it fears, those it doesn't understand, and those it would rather forget. Because at the end, there is no us versus them. There's only us. All of us, human beings, are deserving of dignity, justice, and due process. And we're at a crossroads. One path leads to accountability, transparency, and the rule of law, and the other leads to disappeared people, generational trauma on these children that are getting left behind as their parents are being taken, children being left in vehicles as their parent gets taken and arrested. And we're talking little kids. The normalization of estate violence. History will judge us based on the path we choose. So what do? We can't just be horrified and move on. That's not accountability. We have to demand transparency. Where are people being held? Who's being detained and why? We need mandatory real-time public tracking of every person in custody. If the government detains you, your location should be a matter of public record. Now, a lot of people try and say these detainment centers, well, yeah, they're kind of rough, but so's prison. But these people aren't being held for charges. They're just being picked up because of the color of their skin. And even prisoners should be treated humanely. Second, demand access. They need their lawyers. They have to be able to contact their clients. Families need to be able to find their loved ones. And journalists, they need to be able to do the stories, visit, report. No more administrative challenge, no more facilities that become the black hole where people disappear. So demand accountability. There needs to be oversight. There should be consequences for abuse. Judicial review, it's got to happen. Unannounced inspections by independent monitors. Cameras should be installed in these detention areas. Harsh penalties for losing people in the system. Criminal charges for officials who obstruct documentation. Refuse dehumanization language. When someone uses the word illegals instead of people, confront it. Whenever someone says just following orders, remind them that's not an excuse. History judged that at Nuremberg. 80 years ago, the dock of courtroom 600 of the Nuremberg Palace of Justice was packed with some of the most nefarious figures of the 20th century. Hermann Goering, Rudolf Hess, Joachim von Ribbentrop, and 18 other high-ranking Nazis. They weren't yet known as war criminals. It was a charge that didn't exist until the Nuremberg trials began on November 20th of 1945, in what is now seen as the birthplace of a new era of international law, an international military tribunal. Whenever someone says they're not like us, yes, they are. They bleed red. They're human. They deserve dignity. So learn and share history. Don't allow them to make history disappear like they're trying to with the museums and the libraries. Because if we deny our history, we're going to repeat it. Salem showed us that innocent people confess under pressure. Those accusations, they're not proof. That emotion leads to bad laws. And that fear undermines justice. And we're all trial junkies and truth seekers and justice warriors. So justice should mean something to us. The Trail of Tears taught us that legal doesn't mean just. The Japanese internment just demonstrates that fear cannot justify violating people's rights. Nazi Germany showed us where dehumanization can lead. We can't say never again if we're not paying attention now. Here's what you can actually do. Reach out. Tell people you want transparency in the detention. You want accountability. Support organizations doing the work, ACLU, immigration lawyers, innocent projects, groups fighting for the homeless rights. These stories, don't let them fade away like the people in detention. Talk to your kids about this because they're watching. They're learning how to treat other people because no child is born with hate in their heart, you guys. They have to be taught to hate. So teach them about due process. Let them know what those laws are and what they mean even for them as children, because some children, 14 and 16, 13, are being picked up and put in detention centers because they're the wrong color. Teach them to see the humanity in everyone. Refuse to participate in the witch hunt game. When someone tries to make you afraid of a group of people or persuade you that those people don't deserve the same rights as you, remember Salem. Remember the classroom. Remember that fear is the weapon. Your children will ask you, what did you do when people started disappearing? When families were torn apart? When a police state was being built right in front of you? Will you admit you looked away because it wasn't happening to you yet? Or will you say you stood up, that you demanded better, that you refused to accept a system built on dehumanization and fear? The choice is yours, but history is watching. I know this was kind of a tough subject. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's look at we got 3 missing people. Stay alert. You can save a life. Remember these faces when you're out in public, and be aware of your surroundings with trafficking and missing persons, because these people, they're somebody's family. And trust your instincts. If you recognize someone from today's cases or see something suspicious, contact the authorities and don't assume someone else is going to do it. If you're nervous about contacting the police, we have an email. It's tips the number 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. Send it to us. We'll call. We'll pass along the information about missing persons or individuals in danger. And your awareness could save someone's life. This is Heather Ray Janis. She's 44. She went missing July 6th of this year, Lakewood, Colorado. She was last seen off Holly Street and East Smith Road in Denver's Park Hill. She's affiliated with the Oglala Lakota Nation. She has brown eyes, and she recently has dyed blonde hair and past her shoulders. She's 5'5", 160 to 165 pounds. She was originally from the Pine Ridge, South Dakota area, but has been living in Denver for a while. Please contact the Denver police at 720-913-2000 or contact your local police with any information. This is Kendrick LeRae Jefferson, 34. He disappeared July 11th from Choctaw, Mississippi. He is with the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. He has brown eyes and black hair. He's 5'7", 190 pounds. And they said he has tattoos of a spider on his left hand and the name Katrina on his right forearm and a small cross behind his right ear. He was last seen in Pelahatchie, Mississippi, and I probably butchered that, while he was working on a chicken farm. And he hasn't been seen since. So contact the Choctaw Police Department at 605-656-5711 or contact your local police. Doc will put this information in the description. This is Tylin Ann Yazzie. She's 20. She disappeared September 24th from Albuquerque, New Mexico. She is affiliated with the Yakama Nation. She has brown eyes, brown hair, 5'2" and 98 pounds. Tiny little thing. She was wearing a blue jacket, black shirt, and white shoes. If anybody has seen Tylin, contact the Brunello County Sheriff's Office at 505-468-7134 or contact your local police. So to wind up, you guys, thank you for sticking with me. I just want to say we all bleed red. We all are human, and we all deserve justice. And it's not a weakness. That's not being naive. That's the only foundation strong enough to protect us all. And this is Trial Junkies United. I'm Z. I'm the storyteller with my ride or die Doc. Doc didn't get to talk much tonight.
No, you can't hear. I guess other people can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know anybody could hear me.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. If this episode has moved you, please share it. Let's get people to watch it. I really believe in due process, and I believe in it for everybody. And we don't want to just talk about it. Let's get these stories out there. Don't let them disappear. Every killer depends on your silence, but justice relies on due process. Speak out for truth. Stand up for fairness. Because while someone always knows something, everyone deserves their day in court. Due process is non-negotiable, you guys. Human dignity is non-negotiable. We all bleed red, and remember, we can't forget our history. It protects us from repeating it. And silence is betrayal. We all know that. If you have a story that you want us to look into, please contact us at trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. Thursday night, we'll be picking up another story for our Indigenous and Native brothers and sisters as we tell their stories so no one forgets them. I thank you guys for taking the time to spend with us tonight. If you appreciate what we do, you can buy us a cup of coffee or use the Venmo, and we're grateful. But don't do it if your funds are limited. I know everybody's having a tough time. Support us by watching, sharing, subscribing, hitting the like button. Make a comment after the video publishes. That does help. I mean, the algorithms, YouTube, the mojo that goes on. I don't get it all, but it helps
immensely. If the algorithm doesn't see comments, it's basically telling the algorithm that it's not, nobody likes the content. So
comment, even just something small.
Yep.
I hope I didn't bore you guys tonight. I want you to enjoy our last song. It's about the witch hunt. It's not a long one. So until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, stay compassionate, and stand up for justice, you guys, and due process for everyone. We're going to listen to the witch hunt game. I love you all, and we're going to see you on Thursday. This is Thee and Doc. We're signing off. Ciao, everybody. Say goodnight, Doc.
say goodnight, Doc.
Love you.
The teacher walked around the room that day, whispering secrets, started the game to play. Find the witch among your friends, form your group, see how this ends. But there was no witch at all, just fear made the friendships fall. Suspicion spread like wildfire through the hall. There was no witch at all. Fingers pointing, whispers loud. Trust dissolved within the crowd, breaking into smaller bands, turning backs and rejecting hands. But there was no witch at all, just fear that caused friendships to fall. Suspicion spread like wildfire through the hall. There was no witch at all. Salem, shadow, modern day. Different words, the same old way. Liberal, conservative, black and white and brown. Different races, left and right. Pro this, enter that. Fear divides where love once sat. There was never a witch at all, just lies that caused our friendships to fall. Don't let suspicion build a wall. There was never a witch at all. We're all part of the human family. We refuse the whisper, don't play the game. Love's the antidote to fear and shame.